So, when you wrap up all of this stuff that we're talking about, the vehicle selection, the test drive, the walk around, the presentation, and all of these things there. It's so critical. Again, product knowledge, product awareness of what you have on a lot, and there's resources available. I mean, my goodness, that's what our clients rely on and have for over 30 years.
Yeah, the advanced research is an amazing tool uh, for the Advanta-STAR client to be able to look at the benefits and features and be able to wrap their minds around them and get ready for a walk around and a test drive. And so when you're on the demonstration drive and you're the salesperson and you're driving first, you can explain different things that might startle or turn off a customer. One big thing is something that's really in the news now, and we don't know if it'll be on the vehicles much longer, but that's the automatic start stop system.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I hate the feature. Absolutely hate it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's really weird because it's not taken into account on the EPA fuel mileage figures that are on the sticker of the car.
Hmm. That's
And
interesting.
so,
It was supposed to be a gas fuel savings, right? That's
yeah,
how it's sold.
but in the EPA test cycle, it can't really engage because of the technicalities of how the cycle works and how the vehicles are rigged. And so it's not taken into account on the sticker. So why would car makers spend all the extra on, bigger, beefier starters and bigger, deeper cycle batteries to make this feature work, you might ask.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, someone ask.
the first time I got behind the wheel of one of these was a rental car, and I couldn't understand what the hell was going on. And I was in traffic driving in Houston. And if you drive or live in Houston, bumper to bumper on
Yeah.
Katy Freeway, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the worst place I've heard.
It, it's nuts. And so I'm like, every time and you couldn't disengage it. At least with the newer models, you have the override where you can disengage it. I will tell you, I had a beautiful Buick Enclave Avenir. I loved it. The only thing I hated, I couldn't disengage that start stop.
Yep, I drove a Buick LaCrosse, and Dad, was there a way to turn it off, the start stop thing? I don't think so. It,
No, and well, that's the thing. Start stop originally got its start, if you'll excuse the half pun, with hybrids. Uh,
hmm,
the Buick LaCrosse hybrid with the 2.5 Ecotec hybrid engine. Uh, One of the ways that hybrids save the fuel mileage is they turn off whenever they can.
hmm. I
And
Yeah.
think
so on the hybrid, there's never almost never going to be a disable button.
Okay, yeah, because I think maybe there was if I Googled it, it said if you turn this stick this way and press it 4 times and then turn it this way and then raise the blinker and there was some very convoluted way of turning it off maybe, but I could never figure it out.
Yet people have come up with a few different ways. I mean, obviously, most of the vehicles, especially the ones that aren't hybrids, have a disable switch, but you have to hit it every single time
Hmm.
because, and this is why manufacturers put in, if it doesn't reset every time you turn the car on with the start stop button or with the key, they don't get a corporate average fuel economy credit. And
Hmm.
that's why that button is there, because they adjust the figures for the corporate average fuel economy, even if they don't adjust the figures on the sticker, so that manufacturers can get bigger credits or they can avoid bigger fines by installing the start stop automatic system on as many vehicles as possible.
Yeah, and that goes a long way with what I was saying before. Every time you get in a vehicle, there's a little button that has a big, capital A with a lamp on it. And it's like, that's the first thing I hit as soon as I get in the car. And it's just inconvenient. And you talk about the starters. To me, it's a warranty nightmare that's going to happen. Not maybe to the first owner, but the second owner or the third. Where you're going to get stranded somewhere because this thing didn't re-engage, and you're at a traffic stop or worse.
Yeah.
And somebody behind you, is going to run into the back end of you. So the other feature, while we're talking about these things, is the automatic braking systems. Here again, some vehicles, they'll give you an alert by, either buzzing the seat, or you'll see on my vehicle, on the Buick, on the Buick in Enclave, it's got a set of lights that'll go across the dashboard and alert you to a vehicle that came to a sudden stop, but you have to manually hit the brakes. You know, the manual systems will engage whether you want them to or not. Again, you driving in the city. Again, I'll use Houston. I was driving through there again, rental car, um, downtown Houston, and you got interchanges on top of interchanges. So you've got concrete pillars and posts everywhere near the traffic lanes. Okay. So it looks like you're going straight on into one of these pillars, and then it veers, dramatically right or left. Well, the computer, eye is looking at that. They don't know that it veers to the right in just a few feet. It's going to automatically apply that brake, thinking that you don't see and can react quick enough. And if it hits the brakes, and when you're in a rain situation, which I was, you're going to lose control of the vehicle. And I damn near ran into, one of those, impact dividers, because the car thought it was too smart, for the situation. So, if I have a chance to disengage that, that's the next button I'm turning off, because I
Yeah,
Yep.
want to be in control of that vehicle stopping, not some random ass computer.
but
Yep. Totally agree.
again, it points out the importance of the salesperson driving first so that they can deal with those features because they should be familiar with them and explain them to the customer, and the customer isn't startled by them. But like I said, the start stop may not be an issue much longer. First of all, uh, like I said, the primary incentive is to avoid corporate average fuel economy fines, and the new spending and tax law, those fines have been removed.
Yeah, well, they're adjusting the corporate average fuel economy requirements, with the new administration. They're rolling back what a lot of people in the industry perceive were unattainable by only means by, a certain, number of electric vehicles being on the road, and based on the sales and the acceptance of EVs at this point, it's just not achievable. At some time in the future, they will be, but just, not by 2030 or 2035. They're just unrealistic. And so, while we're talking about some of these features, it's very important with it. And you brought this out. You've been around like I have when anti-lock brakes first came on the scene. Totally
Yeah,
different braking feel on the foot pedal when you applied the brake with an ABS system versus one without it.
totally
And
different way that you're supposed to react in an emergency. I mean,
correct. And so,
we're old enough, we were taught pump the brakes. Uh and it's an interesting thing to note. I mean, I love anti-lock brakes. They're an amazing piece of technology. They work really, really well. I mean,
absolutely couldn't agree
the
more.
primary thing they do, they do shorten stopping distances under almost all conditions, but the primary thing they do is you can stand up on the brake pedal and your vehicle does not lose the ability to steer. In fact, it actually is able to steer better because the weight transfers onto the steering wheels. And so they're amazing. But insurance companies that gave credits for anti-lock brake equipped vehicles in the very early days of anti-lock brakes stopped giving those credits after a couple of years because the rate of accidents with anti-lock brakes didn't go down.
Yeah, it actually went up. There was an issue years ago with Ford Crown Victoria with police interceptor vehicles. And
Oh yeah.
you and I talked about that,
And the
before.
Caprices, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is, again, we're trained pump the brakes. So when you get behind the wheel the first time and you get that feedback against your foot, what's your first natural reaction?
Pull
Pull your
away.
foot
Well,
off.
that's
Okay.
what the civilian does. The
Well,
state
but
troopers and the police, though, they're rigidly trained to pump the brakes. And
Not,
so
yeah, exactly. But at first, when they
what
got behind
happened
the wheel of these
was,
ABS, they
well, no,
did.
no, no.
No, what
They
happened was,
did pump the. Hold on, just a sec. So if if your maiden aunt hits the thing and it vibrates and she lifts off, that's one thing. But what happened was the police, especially the state troopers, when they got in a situation, they'd automatically pump the brakes like they were taught. They were taught to pump them real fast. And do you know what happens to a vehicle, especially the earlier ones, when you pump the brake pedal? The ABS gets overridden and fails, and it can actually lose all braking for, several seconds. Because what happens when you pump the brake is there's a feedback with the regulator pump inside an ABS system, and the ABS system sees it as a major fault, and you can lose braking for several seconds when you pump the brakes, especially if you do it aggressively, like the police are taught in their aggressive driving training.
yeah, well, the reports that I read were a little bit different than what you're reporting. The reports that I read was their natural reaction was just like your aunt, take your foot off the brake, which reduced the amount of stopping time. My understanding of how the brake systems work is you can't physically pump the brake as fast as an ABS system can
Yeah,
modulate the brake pressure to each of the four wheels on a four-wheel
yeah.
ABS system. So the
Also,
problem was,
it's individual too, and so that's why you maintain the control, because unlike just pumping the brakes yourself, which acts on all four brakes equally, the ABS system does it individually at each separate wheel.
yeah, because you got different traction points on each wheel. And the
Yep,
whole idea of the ABS is not just to stop the vehicle, it's to stop it in a controlled measure. But what was happening is the state troopers and other law enforcement were literally getting killed because the vehicles
yep,
weren't stopping because they either weren't properly trained or they were going back to their original training, as you were pointing out, pump it so many darn times, okay? Whereas the true function is just stand on the brake. Again,
right.
you and I drove cars in the 60s and the 70s, those vehicles, totally different braking systems. And the ones
Oh
that
yeah,
are out there now have totally different controlled systems. I mean, not a whole lot of cars in the 60s and 70s, other than, high-end sports cars had four-wheel disc brakes. It's totally different stopping with disc and drum or four-wheel drum, than what we
yep,
have now. But again, getting back to the ABS systems, the big thing was, and the point I was looking to make was, if you weren't schooled on how this works and applies, you were subject. I got behind of a pickup truck. It was a 99 model GMC Sierra. And I mean, literally, I had both feet standing on the brake to get this darn thing to stop because it seemed like it was taking longer to stop than a
yeah.
regular braking system.
That
I
brings up a
ran into the
whole
back
different
end of
dynamic.
another vehicle because
Yep.
I wasn't used to that particular new system that they had in that truck. And so,
Yep,
like I said,
that was
being
a
in the
certain
industry,
specific system that General Motors did to apply anti-lock brakes to a lot of vehicles very inexpensively. They eliminated the accumulator pump. So what would happen is if there was a loss of traction, it would pump the brakes, but at a certain point, there was no more pumping because there wasn't a there wasn't an actual pump to put the pressure back in.
yeah. And like I said, scared the wits out of me. And I was like, I've never had a vehicle, where I couldn't control it. And it was a reasonable amount of time to stop. There was a little, it just started to drizzle. And so there was a traction issue there, like you're
Big
saying.
traction issue, yeah, at the
But
beginning of
man,
a rain, yeah.
yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you and it really helps out.